you. We'll call the meeting to order and have a roll, please.
Mr. Edwards,
Here.
Mrs. Grant,
Here.
Mr. Paloma,
Here.
Mrs. Salee,
Here.
Mrs. Smith.
Here. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted? Moved by Dora, is there a second? Second. Seconded by Jackie. Any discussion? We'll have a roll, please.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Paloma,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. And now we come to the approval of both the regular board meeting and our special board meeting that was held on November 11th. And you have those minutes that Kelsey prepared for us in your packet for tonight. Are there, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. Moved by Kent, seconded by Dora. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll have the roll, please.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mrs. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Paloma,
Yes.
Mrs. Salee,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Steve's back.
I am.
All right, so I have the sponsors report, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, TCS board members, I will give this to you. This is our most recent rating. So I can tell you that very excited, praise God. We got an exemplary rating, except it's not rated this year. We did all the work to make sure they knew we were serious about it. And it came out very, very well, which is exciting. I believe we have been effective in the past, but we have never been exemplary. So this is our first exemplary rating. But again, it is a safe harbor year. So unfortunately, it doesn't give us a third effective or higher to get us kind of away from some of the items that need to be done. So we'll keep at it. We do have a different approach this year, being that I'm assistant principal. So we are working with Pepper Wagner on a lot of communication and them doing a lot of the organizational piece. So the day-to-day stuff that I used to do, I am not doing anymore. I am doing the in-person stuff. So what you see here today, the site visit, which went very well. We did that on November 1st. And now I am trying to find some time to get that report finished up and sent out to all of you. But we did not see any red flags. Everything went very, very smoothly. Like Bo and Kelsey Chrome over there run a tight ship, Ashley as well. So we are excited about the direction that everything is moving. So keep up the great work. Any questions?
And then you had the sponsor meeting?
Yes, the sponsor meeting occurred. You talking about like our monthly meeting?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, our sponsor monthly meeting occurred, everything went well. A lot of our discussion focused on the annual report, which is almost finished up. And then I will get over to Ryan and then it will get sent out through final forms. So we are well ahead of that deadline. The deadline for that is the 30th of November. So I told Ryan I hope to have that done by the end of tomorrow to them, so they can have plenty of time to get that out to their parents. Because that is one of the items that is due on November 30th. The other item that we discussed, which Kelsey is working with Diane on, is the 5-year forecast. And I believe that might even have been submitted right now.
We're just approving it tonight and then I'll submit it tomorrow, as long as.
All right, so we're moving in the right direction with meeting those deadlines as well.
And our corrective action plan, are there any outstanding items on that need to be addressed?
I believe we resolved it. I think we resolved all those issues on
Yeah, the last item that needed resolved, I believe, was the busing, discipline. So,
we took care of that last one.
Okay,
so I think we're all good there.
good. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, we'll move on to public participation, which I don't think we have right now. Unless someone sends something in online. We'll move on to the board member and liaison reports. I had I just want to thank everyone again for the productive work session that we had last week. I thought we had very good discussion. We addressed areas that we need to be considering for future planning, and so thank you very much for that. I was looking in preparation for today at the goals that we had set for this year. And many of them we're making really good progress on. To track the implementation of the blended learning plan is recorded. I feel we're moving forward with that as we need to establish in our utilized systems or programs to track students' academic growth as measured as credits earned, attendance, and student success plans. Ryan showed us the program that he, along with NOECA, had developed a spreadsheet to keep track of all of that information, so that's very good. To measure a minimum of 10% growth via credits earned and passage of state required assessments. We know that those are not available to us at this point in time, but we have, again, a mechanism that's being planned for that. Under sustainability, we were working to sustain a student enrollment of a minimum of 450 students. We are meeting that goal, and as we discussed in the work session, are looking at ways to enhance enrollment where it's appropriate. Foster lines of communication with 75% of the school districts. I know that Ryan and his staff are in communication with other school districts. We may not be able to measure that quite in that detail right now, but Ryan has reported that we are viewed much more favorably by area districts, and his participation on various councils has identified or has provided the evidence for that, that he's being invited to attend those things. Foster line of communications with, establish effective lines of communication in person, electronically, or visually with staff, students, and our parents. That's going to be measured through in-service, through in-person questions, as well as surveys. That's something that we'll be looking at probably closer to February or March. We don't want to wait till the end of the year because we want to take corrective action if we can from that feedback. So we'll look at that January, February probably. And then in terms of career focus for our students, Ryan has submitted to us the Reach Success activities for the gentleman that's working with our school. So I feel like we're really heading as a board and as a school in positive directions according to the board goals, as well as just the things that are happening. I have no other report for legislative. I know we're all getting that information. So Jackie, did you have anything else to submit? Okay. And personnel?
Nope.
Yeah, personnel.
I don't have anything at this time.
Israel had presented at our board meeting at our special work session, professional development.
I have nothing to actually report, but Ryan, I want to say that I'm looking at a couple of people that maybe we could have come in and do an ed service for professional development.
Okay.
That's something I'll get with.
Ed service, you said?
Mhm. That's something I'll get with you within the next week or two to talk about.
Okay.
And under sponsorship report,
I was a little busy last month,
Yes, you
so
were.
I did not make the meeting, but hopefully I'll be able to make the meeting here. When is it this month?
I'd have to look at the calendar here. It's usually the second Thursday of the month, so looking at December. I think we're probably the 9th,
December 9th.
Yes,
Thursday the 9th at 8:30.
So, no, I don't have anything.
Great. Okay, we'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Okay. Before we dive into the financials, I just wanted to give you an update. We are going to meet with Sandusky Family Health Services this Friday. They're coming here so that they can take a look at our nurse's office and kind of evaluate what we would be able to offer health-wise, and then they're gonna kind of give a presentation on the behavioral services that we previously discussed. So we are moving forward with considering that partnership, which again is at no cost to us. If you flip past the 2 minutes. First thing we have is just our cash reconciliation for the month. If you look on the right-hand side, I'll give everyone a second to get there.
Thank you.
No problem. Down the right-hand side, you can see we have outstanding checks for $62,815.46, which at the bottom, that brings our total cash reconciliation for the month just a little bit under 2.7 million. Moving on, we've got our disbursement summary. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary that I specifically wanted to point out, but I can give everyone a couple minutes just to look it over and see if there's any questions over any of the disbursements.
Did anyone have any questions on this?
No.
Okay.
Next, we have the outstanding disbursement summary. And following that, we have our monthly spreadsheet. We went over the spreadsheet pretty thoroughly on Thursday. I just wanted to point out one more time that you can see in that right-hand column at the top, we do have a significant drop in our revenue as we previously discussed. Does anyone have any further questions over the spreadsheet? Okay. Following the spreadsheet, we've got our November payment. Under the adjustments, you can see we've still got that 5,800 payment coming out for the EMIS corrections, as well as our $32,272 payment that's coming out monthly. Next year, because it'll be based on this year's revenue, our paybacks to the state, it'll be based on 8% of this year's revenue. We will see that come down, and that'll be a little bit more manageable. Right now, because it's based on last year's revenue, it is pretty high considering what our payment is. Following that, we have November's FTE report. At the bottom, we've got our total of 356.73 FTEs, which is about 70% of our enrollment. Next, we've just got the 5-year forecast. Again, we covered this pretty extensively on Thursday. I'm recommending this up for approval tonight. Did anyone have any further questions over the forecast?
Has there been any changes since last Thursday?
No, nothing's been changed.
Are there any questions on that? If I did this?
Nope.
I think we discussed it.
And then the final item that I have for you is our staff spreadsheet. This is the base 1% raise along with a step. This is that combination that we talked about on Thursday.
Very good. At our work session last week, we had talked about Kelsey presenting us with the data that would help us understand what income we have to offset any increases on the base, as well as continuing with the steps. I asked her to hold off on that for tonight because we don't really have the information, we won't have the information we really need until December. So it seemed like we were discussing something that was gonna change anyway. So she'll, as we get that information, she'll present that. More than likely, we'll have that for the December board meeting. We won't take action on it. Probably we'll present it, discuss it, and then look to considering action if there is any at the January board meeting. Thank you for this, Kelsey.
And that's all I've got for the treasurer's report.
Very good. And Ryan, just remind us, I know you sent the FTE or the enrollment, what's the enrollment number?
Actually, that's one of the items I'm gonna talk about.
Oh, okay, very good. Let's go ahead and approve the treasurer's report. Is there a motion to approve items A through D? Okay, moved by George, is there a second? Second by Jackie. Any questions? Hearing none, we'll have the roll, please.
Mrs. Grant?
Yes.
Mrs. Lee? Yes. Mr. Edwards?
Yes.
Mr. Palumbo?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes. Thank you, Kelsey.
Yes.
All right, Ryan.
Okay, first thing I would like to talk about here is the enrollment data. If you look in your folder, there's a spreadsheet here right under where your agenda was. We've taken a look at this. This gives us the monthly breakdown for students by district of residence. And this is as of Monday morning. We had a total of 509 students enrolled at that time. And the breakdown from within the 6 counties that we now serve is 503 students. And we still have a few students who have been grandfathered in that are still with us. We have 6 students from outside of the 6 county radius with us for a total of 509. You can see here that our largest area of students here would be Fremont. We have 74 from the Fremont School District. And then after that, there's several districts that are very similar to each other. We have Clyde at 40. We have Astoria at 25. We have Margaretta at 35 students. We have Norwalk with 48 students. We have Sandusky with 54 students, Tiffin with 32, and Willard with 42. So we've got, after Fremont, there's quite a few who are pretty close to each other in terms of where the students are coming from. Okay, the next thing I would like to talk about is the Ohio improvement process. So about a week ago, we had our building leadership team meeting, our BLT meeting. I'm going to use a lot of acronyms here. BLT meeting. We met with a lady from the state support team, Bonnie Meyer, who is our educational consultant. And we went through our goals in terms of the OIP with Bonnie and with our team. And we had a representative from our general education teachers, which was Nicole Lamberrius. And we also had a representative on the BLT from our intervention specialist, which was Chris Shear. And through our discussions there in the BLT meeting, then we took that information back to the teacher-based team meetings, or the TBTs for that acronym. We had that meeting Monday morning at 8 a.m. Where we had the general ed teachers downstairs in the social studies lab. We had the intervention specialist meeting in the computer lab, and we reviewed all the data that we had talked about in the building leadership team, and we talked about what we can do with that data, what are some takeaways that we have, and what can we do to improve student academic achievement. And as we meet more throughout the year, we'll get deeper into that data. So we're kind of looking at things on the surface level right now. But this packet here that is in your folder, this is basically the agenda that we used in our TBT meetings yesterday to kind of drive that discussion. And Nicole and Chris, they were basically the facilitators of those meetings in the TBTs because they took the information from the BLT to the TBT meetings and relayed that information and led that discussion there. A few takeaways here. Just looking at our OIP goals for this year, and we have a signed agreement with the state support team on these goals. They're working to help us with these goals. The first goal is that TCS will strive to maintain the overall attendance percentage at or above 75% for the school year. Right now, our attendance funding percentage is at 70%, so that's an area we need to continue to work on improving. The TCS proficiency rate on Algebra 1 and course assessments will increase by at least 2% each year. The TCS proficiency rate on ELA 2 assessments will increase by at least 2% each year. And then also our final goal was, in addition to working towards earning a high school diploma, 100% of Townsend students will be given a career focus that is connected to their interests, skills, and academic strengths, and document this in each student success plan. So this is an area that Gene had talked about as one of our goals this year, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of working towards that goal. It's a work in progress. We're utilizing the student success plans. The teachers are using those to input the students' career interests. And also we're getting a lot of students connected to Tim Warwick from Reach Success, who was doing a great job of sitting down one-on-one with students, getting to know them, getting to know more about them, their interests, their strengths, more about their life outside of school, and get them connected maybe to some career opportunities and exposure. So that he's done a great job. It's been a very good addition for Townsend and our students.
So the information that he collects, does he input into the student success plans, or is that information transferred then to the teachers?
So he has a running spreadsheet that he documents all of his notes in.
Right, you would show us.
Yep, and then each week he sends that out to the staff, so the
Okay.
staff can look at their students.
And
become
then they
familiar-
transfer.
Yep, become familiar with those conversations so that they are knowledgeable about what conversations are taking place, and they can input that information into student success plans. So then after talking about the goals, we looked at some relevant data here in terms of graduation rates and of course data and STAR testing, which you can see here. We've reviewed this as a board. We reviewed this last month when we looked at the state report card. We looked at our graduation rates. Those are listed here. In a typical year, we would have earned and exceeds standards rating in all of those graduation rates, with the exception of the 5-year rate, it would have been meets standards. So in terms of dropout prevention schools, our graduation rates are pretty solid.
So Ryan, if we look at the bullets under the 4-year rates and we see those percentages,
Yes, for the subgroups.
yes. So is that the true percentage of the subgroups for all of the school, or just for the students that graduated in 4 years?
That was just under the 4-year rate, and for some reason they only provide that for the 4-year. I'm not sure why that is,
Okay,
but they give us the breakdown for the 4-year rate there.
so is it safe to assume that those figures reflect our total student body, or not necessarily?
I would imagine that it's pretty proportional when you look at 5, 6,
Okay.
7, 8.
Because that was something, I don't know if you remember, as a board, that we had said that's one piece of information that we have not been tracking the way we used to. And if you notice, the economically disadvantaged percentage is considerably different than what we had experienced in the past. From 80% figures as high as 80% down to 32.7.
That is the graduation rate for that subgroup. So that's not the percentage of students that are.
Okay,
eligible.
so it
That's-
doesn't reflect the
That's the
population.
graduation rate for that subgroup.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
okay, well, I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, so when you look at the 4-year graduation rate there of 38%, you compare it to the subgroups there, economically disadvantaged is 32.7% for their graduation rate. Students with disabilities, 27.5%. Black or non-Hispanic is 33.3%.
Okay,
Hispanic 35.6%, and multiracial is 40%. So you see a little bit of difference there with the low speed students with disabilities, but you don't see a huge influx in those percentages when you look across the board at our subgroups. Right?
okay. And I know it's not part of this data, but do we have anything that can project the subgroups for the school or our total enrollment at this point in time?
In terms of like, so in Dazzle, we have it built in there where we have a custom tab that we can identify the at-risk factors.
Okay,
Are you talking about at-risk factors?
at risk
At
and
risk.
or the subgroups.
Yeah, the subgroups, that's already built in Dazzle, so we could pull a report for that to show
Okay.
what, what percent of students we have by
Okay.
race or. by
In the future, if we
economic
could
expansion.
get that just as
Sure.
a benchmark kind of thing to see where our enrollment is, I think that would be useful. So of the 38%, 32% of the students that graduated were economically disadvantaged.
No, the economically disadvantaged population as a whole, when we look at that subgroup, 32.7% graduated within a 4-year rate.
Okay,
And then if we look
how
at,
does that relate to the 38%?
so I should say this, when you look at the 4-year cohort, so the students on the report card that we just got, that should have graduated within a 4-year time span, when we include all those students in that subgroup, 38% of that subgroup, or that entire group, graduated on time in 4 years.
Okay,
When you look just at the portion of it that deals with economically disadvantaged students, their graduation rate for 4-year was 32.7%.
okay, got it. All right, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. The 8-year rate should be 50.1%. My decimal's missing there. So it's not 510%. So as a TBT, then the TBTs went on and they reviewed this data and talked about it. On the back of the page, there's some attendance data, and then there's some questions for them to reflect on. And I'm in the process of gathering the responses from both those, and we'll bring it back to BLT at our next meeting to review the discussion and the responses for the TBT.
So was there any kind of feedback from the SST professionals as far as how things look?
I think they were pretty pleased with how things were going. Even in that meeting, right? Bonnie seems really pleased with how things were going.
And then Julie was very supportive. She wasn't able to make it to the TBT meeting, but if I email her, she responds within hours. So I think that's fabulous. For
Yeah, yeah, to get that kind of, support.
Yeah, they've been very supportive over the past few years for us.
Very good. Are there any questions? Any other questions?
So that's an update on the Ohio improvement process. The next thing I'd like to talk about is considering some advertisement options for Townsend. So a few moments ago, I talked about how our enrollment has dropped a little bit. It's at 509 students. And, when we budgeted, we were thinking maybe a little bit higher, maybe at 550, maybe 600 number is what we were hoping for. And we started higher, but our enrollments dropped a little bit due to some withdrawals due to the 72-hour rule. Also, we have 17 students who have graduated that have come out of our enrollment as well. So we have to consider that. But one thing, in addition to our advertising through Facebook, which is pretty much all that we do right now is Facebook, social media type advertising. One thing I think might be good for us to look at is advertising in the Town Money Saver, which is a mailing that goes out within many different communities. And have you all seen the Town Money Saver? Are you familiar with that? Where it comes to your home, there's coupons in it for pizza places, there's advertisements.
Once a week it comes.
Once a month, yeah, once a month.
Once a month?
Yeah, it's usually about 20 pages or so. I know I always go through and look at the coupons, see if any of them stand out. And but there's other advertisements in there too, and it goes to every home basically within that community. And what I provide with you here is pricing and information for the different mailers that they have in different towns, and what the cost is for a quarter page, a half page, or a full page. And this is an advertisement here that we have put together this week, and I have to give a lot of credit to Karen Zirkle. She is extremely talented when it comes to marketing things, whether it's the newsletter that we put out last spring or an advertisement such as this. And I don't know about you guys, but I am floored by how nice this looks, this advertisement. I think it It says the things that need to be said to just promote and share the opportunity of Townsend with people. And I think it might be a wise investment if we consider putting this in some of the mailers within the communities within the 6 counties that we serve. I know the investment seems a little big when we think about, putting in $500, maybe $600, depending on the town, for a 1-page ad. But consider the gains from that. There's a lot of students out there that we haven't reached that would benefit from Townsend. And I think this would be one way to go about possibly reaching some of those people who maybe don't even know that Townsend exists.
So the question is, Kelsey, can we use NAS or not?
I would have to look into it a little bit further. My initial reaction is it might be challenging. There's those 5 questions, and I don't know them right off the top of my head, but I feel like it'd be hard to justify that it meets all 5.
Okay.
Like, I think you could possibly say, like, yes, it's in response to COVID because our enrollment is down from COVID, but I don't know that it's gonna meet all 5.
Okay.
It'd be something I'd have to review.
So in looking at this, Ryan had, and Ryan, do we have a total of what? I know you had emailed that to me.
So I had picked out like 8 towns that we could consider mailing this to. Let me see if I can break this up. I had looked at what it would cost if we did for 1 month, a 1-page ad in the Bellevue Clyde mailing, the mailing that goes to Norwalk, Milan, and Monroeville, Tiffin, Fremont. There's one that goes to Huron and Berlin Heights, one in Port Clinton. There's one that covers Dusky area and Castelia, and then there's one that covers Lorraine. So looking at those 8, because we have 6 or more advertisements, we would get a 30% discount. And the cost of advertising in all those communities and getting a full page, color page in those mailings would be $3,041.50. So just a little bit over $3,000, which if you look at it in terms of FTEs is a little bit less than half of 1 FTE.
So per month cost.
That would be to mail or to include it in 1 month. Yeah. I don't think it's something you would do every month. I think maybe 1 or 2 months is what you look at, especially because we're around that time of the semester break, and that's when we seem to see enrollments come our way.
Well, you see how it works, if it works really good, keep doing it.
What are your thoughts?
I think we do need to advertise. The price is good.
And we technically don't have to vote on it because it's less than $5,000. So it's something, I wanted to bring it to your attention and have a conversation, though, although we don't probably technically need to vote on it.
And you would target what months, January or?
Well, we could, if we get it in this week, we could get it in the December mailer. And, see what we get in December and maybe trickle into January, or maybe look at December and then follow it up with January, especially if we get a response in December. Because a lot of schools end their first semester in either the end of December or early January. And that's where students start realizing that, hey, I'm not going to earn these credits this year, or I may not graduate. And if we give them this exposure that, hey, this opportunity exists, you can still earn credits or you can still graduate, maybe they'll take advantage of that and enroll with us.
Is there any objection to moving
I
forward?
like it. I think that she did a good job on it.
Israel?
Yeah, just as long as we don't do it every month.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute.
I know, it's a lot of money.
So we would be strategic with
Yes.
when we roll it out or how we roll it out.
Yes?
If put it this way, if you invest 1 month, it's a half FTE that you're investing. If you gain a full FTE from that, you've more than paid for, your advertisements.
Which at this point of the year, it'd be 2 students, 3 students.
Probably about 2 students. Yeah.
Assuming they stay enrolled.
Yeah, if they stay enrolled for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
All right, very good. Thank you for, let's give it a go and see what happens.
Very good.
Did you guys talk to staff at all about doing that, about, you had a good idea about promoting it, giving it?
Yeah, I've put out a document for them to add their ideas, and we've got quite a list that they helped generate. That's, yeah. All right, this evening, Ashley Harvest is going to give us some special education update. Ashley, thank you for your time and for sharing this information this evening. The floor is yours.
All right, I pulled my numbers as of last Friday. We do a number update every Friday and send it out, so we know where the caseloads are. Oops, that's why. There's 119 students currently on an IEP. And in addition to that, there's 25 on 504s. Our caseloads are averaging 18, where the state mandate is at max 24. The 18 is without the addition of general education students on their caseloads, so they do have a little bit more, but not at the numbers that a general education teacher are. We typically manage the special education students in the building and frontline by getting instructions in the instructional labs. We have fabulous master content teachers, and our tutors they're blowing my mind away, like how their rapport is with the students. They're connecting. The students really like them, so that's all feedback from students. I think that's awesome. They work with the teachers in their classrooms to get a little bit more standardized or SDI for their IEPs.
And that's the specifically designed instruction that's on their IEP.
And then we have 2 students home instruction due to mental disabilities or physical ailments that can't come to the building. So we align with Google Meets, Zoom, whatever fluctuates with their schedule, just because some days they're not readily available at the time we set up, and we make that time up at different hours. The parents are pretty involved and they communicate well with us. Psych, our Kristen Bello, who is fabulous. She's breathing very well this year compared to last. She's completed 27 TETRs, which are the transfers. So transfer ETRs, as soon as they come in, we have so many days to get them accepted or rejected if our building can stand behind what was already written in there. So after going through the audit with the state, we scrutinize them because we don't want to be back in that spot. There are 3 more currently in the process, which I know that number's changed since yesterday. She has completed 5 complete ETRs on her own and 1 initial ETR. Currently, her reeval list is 41 left to complete. She's a little bit more than what a typical school psych is, but as ours flow in and out, she's managing it. It's about 1 ETR a week that she's completing. But she's not feeling frustrated like she was last year, so I think that's awesome. Karen, with the addition of the transition coordinator, she has been beneficial not to just our students, but the staff as well. She's helping work with the students on the transition portion of the IEP, which is really getting hammered on right now from the state. Currently, she's worked 125 times with students, not 125 students, but times throughout the year with different students. She's created a transition link. She sends them both to parents and students to get the AATA survey, which is age appropriate transition assessment that is mandated by the state. It's really getting hit hard on. She created one on a Google Drive, so she can just send it out, they can fill it out, and then when she works with them, so that way we're getting the input of both the students and the parents in that section.
And actually, when you're talking about transition, could you explain transition to what?
So we're looking at transition to post-secondary, transition to employment, transition to independent living. Those are the big goals that we want them to succeed in. So when a kid comes in and says they want to be a veterinarian, no, we're not gonna tell them you can't be a veterinarian, but maybe we're gonna say maybe work in a field with animals, if that makes sense. Because if they have veterinarian, it's harder to become a doctor right now, so. But I think just giving them different pathways and ideas, and then she also partners with Tim, the success coordinator, and they work hand in hand, and I think those connections and ties are building great rapport with our kids and not working out. You guys have any questions on that? No? Okay, our state review was in compliance, that we've met all our marks, our IEPs, our ETRs have all been completed and turned in on time, so we haven't had any flags on that, that's huge. We did have to do a corrective action plan for the areas of math and English. We need to show 1% growth in areas of ELA and algebra and geometry, which in our TBT meetings, we had some great ideas about how we can do some EOC and of course test prepping by looking at older tests, doing some test practice, maybe giving some kudos to the kiddos for coming in and watching that and just exposing them to the test questions or explaining to them what they want in there. Because a lot of them go in blind and don't, and they freak out when they see it. So we're just gonna look at different options there to explore that and hopefully improve. That is my stuff in a nutshell. How much you guys have anything else?
And the number of intervention specialists then?
6, 7, 6, yeah, with 2 of them kind of lower on numbers because
Right.
one's CBI and the other one is our social studies instructor as well. So their caseloads are a little bit lower, but
So with the numbers that we have, then we're not looking to need to add a special
The only thing
intervention
I'm-
specialist at this time.
the only thing I'm worried about is we have 2 ISs going out on maternity leave at the same time, probably our heaviest hit time.
And do we have anybody that were contacted as substitutes?
Don't believe so. I believe we want to reach out to some December grads, maybe from Bowling Green or.
Or maybe we can talk to a lot of Faulkner and see if the managers show up in there. If you have an IS back then. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
Okay. Because those maternity leaves are for a half a year or 12 weeks?
12 weeks.
Okay.
So we're looking at April, yeah.
And our individual educational plans reviewed annually on the anniversary of a birthday or do
They're
we have-
reviewed at least a year and a day prior to whenever it was written the time before.
Okay,
But it's a live document, it can be reviewed, amended at any time per parent's request, or if we need to move.
but we're not
down.
concentrating, I know some school districts will concentrate annual reviews in given months of the year. And ours spread out pretty evenly throughout the school year? Or do we have,
I say we get hit hard in the beginning and at the end.
okay,
Right now, we're really trying to align them with the ETR, so they go a little bit more smoothly.
oh,
It's already hard enough to get the parents here once, let alone twice, within
Right.
30 days, so.
right,
And as we all know, as parents, it's hard to get time off to go to a meeting, that's gonna be,
right.
a half hour for you.
I know, is there any state regulation that prevents IEP meetings being held on Zoom or
No.
Google Meet or, so that we have that as an advantage too. That would have been so great. To be able to meet like that.
Yes.
Are there any questions? For Ashley.
I don't have any.
Thank you so much. That's very good. It gives us a good understanding and our percentage of student body that are in special education is at about what percent?
If you include 504s, you're at like 29%.
Okay, and if not, if we don't include 504s,
25.
okay, that's what I was thinking.
24. I was like, I was trying to do quick math
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Sorry.
No, that's right.
Very good, Ashley. Thank you. Very
Thank you,
much.
Okay, so then we have two items under new business tonight. The first is a recommendation to approve recent graduates and issue their high school diplomas. And you can see that we have about 8 or 9 graduates this month there. And then the second item for approval this evening is a recommendation to approve the revised version of the Townsend Community School Organization Chart as presented. Positions here, we added the academic tutors, we added data entry assistant, who are also going to eventually be working with the student success plans. And we have also added the front door monitor to the organizational chart. Any questions on items A or B?
My question was, I sent it to you, but it was late. I sent you the.
I did see that email come through at the scrimmage, so.
I'm sorry.
Here's what's here.
Yeah. Is the title of that position academic tutor or is it educational tutor?
Academic tutor is what we had put forward the tutor positions, yeah.
And that's what's in the contract. Okay, I'll change it, send it again. Okay, I had the wrong. Sorry. Very good. Is there a motion to approve items A and B of the superintendent's report?
I'll move.
Second. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll have the roll.
Mr. Edwards,
Yes.
Mr. Paloma.
Yes.
Mrs. Grant.
Yeah.
Mrs. Lee.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes. Very good. And is there any other business that needs to come before the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.